Are you looking to retire or just live a more affordable life? Maybe buy a home? In this video, I'm going to show you where you could do that in the southern United States. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to The World According to Briggs and a video about towns in the southern United States where you could live, retire, survive on $1,658 a month. We did this series a few years back and we set the price at $1,500 a month because that is what the average Social Security payment was, and it's about half what the average military retirement and pension is. Things have changed. Prices are up across the board. Real estate, insurance, Rice Krispie treats, everything. Today we're looking at the southern United States: Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina, Louisiana, and Kentucky. Virginia and West Virginia should be on this list by some regional maps, but I try and make sure every state has some representation, so we're going to move those up with the North Atlantic state like they are in some maps. The $1,658 on this video is what it should cost the average Joe to live a comfortable life. In this case, when I say comfortable life, it means you never have to worry about food, eviction, or utilities getting shut off. The stats on this video are just the average. There's 1,000,001 scenarios that could change someone's financial situation, like poor health, divorce, dependence. This is just the basics for the average Joe. All right, let's see where you could live a more affordable life. Number 10, McRae, Helena. McRae, Helena is a small town of under 7,000 people in between Savannah and Columbus, about the midway point there. This town has a prison on the north side of town, and a lot of the residents work for the prison or in some kind of job that supports the prison. This town hasn't been around that long. Well, I shouldn't say it that way. It used to be two towns, and in 2015, they pressed them together and became McRae, Helena. I'm struggling to call this place Helena because I grew up with a girl named Helena, spelt the same way. Every time I look at it, I want to call it Helena. But this town is big in prisons and corrections. They have a correctional facility on the south side of town, too. I don't know if that works as a deterrent to keep their crime rate down, but their crime rate is actually 64% lower than the national average. Now, keep in mind, that rarely happens for a town that is relatively affordable. Now, they say the median rental price here is $560 a month. That's 41% lower than the national average. I looked around, they didn't have a whole bunch of rentals. The median listing price for a home here is about $58,000, which is 68% lower than the national average. I poked around. If you want to buy a home here that's nice, ready to go, maybe a little bit older, but decent, you're looking at around $200,000. And if you go all the way up to $350,000, they have one that looks like a plantation. It's just a lot smaller and doesn't have a bunch of property. You don't have like acres and acres. It's like a starter plantation for someone. McRae, Helena has a livability score of 75, and the average monthly expenditure is estimated to be $1,280. Number 9, Taylor, South Carolina. It is a suburb of Greenville. It's on the north side. And houses here, I was talking to a real estate agent from there that I've communicated back and forth with, and he said the difference in prices for real estate between Taylor's and Greenville is about $100,000. Now that's just ballparking it, obviously, but they do have some reasonable real estate prices. I was looking around and you could get a decent older home for under $240,000. According to the U.S. Census, the real estate here is about 23% lower than the national average. And if you're going to rent here, the median rental price is about $800, which is 16% lower than the national average. It's not bad. Now, they got a little more crime than I'd like to see in a retirement place, but it's not the worst. It's only 40% above the national average. Like we've learned in other videos, you got places like East St. Louis and Camden, New Jersey, where it's like 200, 300, and 400% above the national average. Taylor's is not a bad place to live. They got a lot of construction going on there, so the place is growing, which means the next 5 or 6 years, it'll start getting more expensive. So if you're thinking about it, look into it now. They do have a livability score of 78, and like we've said before, if it's below like 60, it sucks. If it's below 50 or in the 50s, it really sucks. And anything above 70 to 75 is decent. Your average monthly expenditure in Taylor's would be $1,595. Number 8, Corbin, Kentucky. Corbin's a nice place. I mean, it's got really good stats, next to no crime. It's beautiful land. It's right there by the Laurel River Lake, which gives you plenty of things to do. If you're looking for it on a map, Corbin is on Interstate 75, about halfway between Knoxville, Tennessee, and Lexington, Kentucky. Corbin was first settled in the mid-1800s, and it was called Lynn Camp Station at the time. When they got a post office, they started calling the community Cummins after the founder, Nelson Cummins. But then it was discovered in 1885 that both Cummins and Lynn Camp were already in use in other places in Kentucky, so they had to change it. They settled on Corbin after a local reverend. If you look at it from the stats, the only negative they have is employment. They really don't have a bunch of jobs or high-paying jobs or decent-paying jobs for that matter, but everything else is great, including their crime rate. It's actually 17% lower than the national average. Their cost of living's low. Their housing's great. Here's the statistics on housing. If you want to rent here, they really don't have a bunch of rentals, but it's about $550 a month, which is 41% lower than the national average. If you want to buy a house here, the median listing price is $91,400. That's 51% lower than the national average. But realistically, if you want to buy a house here, you're looking at about $200,000. Now, a lot of these places, these small towns, we don't have a lot of good footage. So if you're watching video in the background and you're all, hey, that's not Corbin, that's like 4 miles down the road. We're just showing that as a visual aid. The pictures are of that place. Corbin has a livability score of 77, and your average monthly expenditure in Corbin is $1,575. Number 7, Red Bank, Tennessee. Red Bank is a little city entirely surrounded by the city limits of Chattanooga. Now, Chattanooga's growing. It's a great place to live right now. Red Bank is probably your cheapest option if you want to live in the Chattanooga metro area. They have a little bit of crime, nothing major. It's just like 22% above the national average, but their cost of living and their housing is pretty low here. It's actually 13% lower than the national average and 3% lower than the Tennessee average. And it's in a major city in Tennessee. That's really strange. This is another place that had to change their name because the name was already taken. It originally was Pleasant Hill, but when they went to get their post office, they found out there's another place in Tennessee called Pleasant Hill. The postmaster at the time, his wife, actually suggested that they call it Red Bank because outside her window she could see a red clay ridge. So the name Red Bank stuck until they decided to incorporate with another town next to it called White Oak. And eventually in 1966, they just dropped White Oak and were called Red Bank. As far as real estate goes in Red Bank, they say that the median listing price is $126,000. That's 31% lower than the national average, and rent is about $719. Realistically, if you want to buy a house in Red Bank, it's all over the map, but $250 should be able to get you something decent. They actually have one house here for $45,000, and it's run down and it would need a whole bunch of work, and the lot is about as big as the house, wide I should say, but it goes what looks like about 100 yards back. It's strange. It's like the thinnest lot I've ever seen. The livability score in Red Bank is 79, which is outstanding for a place that's relatively cheap. And your average monthly expenditure in Red Bank is only $1,467. Good job, Red Bank. Number 6, Hartselle, Alabama. Hartselle, Alabama is north of Birmingham and just south of Decatur, Alabama, not too far from the Tennessee River. This is a nice town that bills itself as the city of Southern hospitality. They have a nice downtown with plenty of like antique shops and little cafes, things like that. And like any quality town, their main street is called Main Street. Sometimes I watch like city council meetings when I run across them on YouTube. It's not like I'm out looking for them, but sometimes I see them, I'll watch them. And this one small town was going to rename their main street to The Main. That's what they wanted to call it. And the locals at the meeting started laughing when they suggested it, so they killed that idea and stuck with Main Street. This is not a bad place to live. Their crime isn't terrible. It's only like 15% above the national average, but it's a relatively small place, so, a bar fight could raise your crime rate through the roof here. They only got about 14,000 residents. They say the median listing price here is about $132,000, which is 29% lower than the national average, and rent here goes for about $600. That's what they say. If you want to rent a 1-bedroom here, 2-bedroom here, you're looking at over $700, $750, maybe $800. But the real estate is so cheap here, you might as well just buy. You could get houses that you're probably going to need a little work for about $100,000. But if you want to get something decent that's ready to go, $150,000 to $200,000 is all you're going to need. Hartselle has a livability score of 72, and their average monthly expenditure is $1,489. Number 5. Grenada, Mississippi. It is really hard to find a place with good stats in Mississippi. I mean, statewide, sure, their cost of living and their housing, their real estate is always really cheap. But to find one with everything else that's kind of good, it's kind of rough. Grenada has a population of a little over 13,000 residents, and it sits between Jackson, Mississippi and Memphis, Tennessee, about the midway point. Right outside of town, they've got Grenada Lake, which looks like it's a good time. They got a river going through town. They've got some really nice things about this place. It's just in Mississippi. If you want to retire on the cheap and you own a fishing pole, Grenada's probably a good place for you. Here's where Grenada shines. Real estate. Their median listing price is $98,000. That's 47% lower than the national average, but this is another one of those places, why rent? You could almost afford a house here working at McDonald's. I mean, if they had a McDonald's. They do have a Walmart Supercenter. They have homes here all over the place that are like $50,000. You're going to need to do some work, and it's going to take some effort, but they have plenty of them. The livability score in Grenada is 76, which is not bad, and their average monthly expenditure is $1,205. Mississippi has a lot of problems, but being an expensive date is not one of them. Number 4, Thomasville, North Carolina. I like Thomasville. It's in that sweet spot where I like to find towns where it's just south of Winston-Salem, not too far away, and kind of close to Greensboro too. So you get the small town vibe with bigger cities not too far away in case you need one. And that usually ends up in the form of healthcare, which Winston-Salem has phenomenal healthcare. If you're retired, that is something to be concerned with. Winston-Salem has some of the best doctors, nurses, and hospitals in this country. So if you're a retiree with some medical problems, this is probably a solid option for you, especially when you see how cheap the real estate is. The median listing price in Thomasville is $109,900, which is not bad. That's 40% lower than the national average. When it comes to median rent price, it says it's $647, which is 32% lower than the national average. Realistically, a decent rent is going to run about $750 here. When it comes to real estate here, you could find things for under $100,000. If you want to buy a house, probably, a couple decades old, but in decent condition, you're looking at in between $170,000 to $200,000. Now, if you go all the way up to $250,000, you'll get a newer house on maybe a half an acre. Thomasville prides itself on its big chair. Yeah, it's a thing. Some of these small towns or towns have like the world's largest ball of twine, things like that. They got a big chair. That big chair sits in downtown Thomasville, which is a nice little downtown area. It's clean, it's cute, it's got some train tracks running through town. Thomasville has a livability score of 72, and their average monthly expenditure is $1,481. Number 3. Middleburg, Florida. It's getting harder and harder to find places in Florida that fall under the cheap category. If it's cheap, it's usually really high crime, but we do what we can. So I found Middleburg, Florida, which is outside of Jacksonville to the south. It's not really a town or a city. It's known as a census-designated area. Now, what's good about this is they do have relatively cheap houses. The crime isn't terrible here, and it's close to Jacksonville. In case you have some medical concerns, you have great hospitals right there. Now, they do have some crime. It's not terrible. It's only 11% higher than the national average, which, like we've talked about, is not bad. The median listing price in Middleburg is $121,000, which is 34% lower than the national average, and their average rent is 7% lower, and it sits around $900. Realistically, rent's probably going to be somewhere around $1,000, maybe $950, for like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And the housing, of course, is going to be higher than $121,000. That's just the median listing price, they say, and that counts in things like vacant lots, whatever. Realistically, you're looking at probably around $200,000 to $250,000 to get into something that's livable, but a majority of their homes there are about $350,000 to $450,000. It is still affordable. It's just a little higher than I'd like to have on a list like this, but it's in Florida. The livability score in Middleburg, Florida is 75, and their average monthly expenditure is $1,521. Number 2, Spring Hill, Louisiana. Spring Hill, Louisiana is on the north side of the state at the Arkansas border. And like every place in Louisiana, this area is surrounded by water. You got lakes, creeks, rivers, ponds. It's all here. If you own a fishing pole and you want to have a nice, relaxing life, move to Spring Hill. They do have homes for sale, but really it's lots of land that they have acres and acres of land that you could buy. Now, the reason I bring this one up and the reason I put it here, I always get people wanting to know where they could, move their motorhome to or something like that while they build a house. This is the perfect opportunity. The land is cheap here. You have half-acre lots here for like $25,000. There's one that has an old rundown house on it for $18,000. The median listing price in Spring Hill is $73,900. It is the cheapest place I've ever seen that has good stats. They're actually 60% lower than the national average. Their median renting price is 46% lower than the national average, and that's $513 a month. Realistically, that one's probably going to be about $650. The cost of living here is 25% lower than the national average. Not bad. There's two downsides to this city, and that's one, it's in Louisiana, and number two, it's right up against Arkansas. Those are your only two negatives. The crime rate here is 41% lower than the national average, and the employment numbers here aren't terrible. The unemployment rate is actually 46% lower than the national average. So you could move here, actually have a job, and live extremely cheap if you want to do that in retirement, or you just build a house and fish. This would be considered a small town. They have a population that's just under 5,000 residents. It's actually shrinking. In 2010, they had 5,279. Spring Hill has two requirements of all southern towns. They got a main street, like we discussed earlier, and they also got a church street. They always have them. The livability score in Spring Hill is 72, and their average monthly expenditure is $1,435. All right, before we get to number one, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you already haven't. And if you really want to help out the channel, at the end of the video, there's those end screens that suggest videos for you. Watch one of those. It's something YouTube really wants you to do these days, and I'm here to promote it. All right, on to number one. And number one, Mountain Home, Arkansas. It's normally kind of hard to find a nice place in Arkansas that's outside that northwest corner, with Rogers, Springdale, and Fayetteville. But Mountain Home does a pretty good job. It hasn't always been called Mountain Home. Mountain Home was originally known as Rapp's Barren. The land was owned by a man named Simeon Talbert, but he went by the nickname Rapp. He built the first home in the area in the early 1830s. This became one of those areas, like so many other areas in the South, where the whole family lived like in the area. Different generations. Rapp and many of his family members are buried in a small cemetery in the Indian Creek subdivision of Mountain Home. Mountain Home has a good-sized medical facility called Baxter Regional Medical Center. This is another good place to live if you like to fish. You got Norfolk Lake right there, and Bull Shoals Lake isn't too far away. You got creeks, rivers, everything in this area. The White River runs not too far from town either. The median listing price here is $116,000, which is 37% below the national average. Realistically, though, you could get a decent house for the $200,000 area. And I mean, ready to move in, decent. You're not going to have to do a whole bunch of work. They do have houses that get up into $300,000 to $400,000. Those are really nice, but you could get a nice house and retire for in between $150,000 and $200,000. The average rental price here for one bedroom is $635, which is 33% lower than the national average. It's going to be a little more expensive, probably around $700, $725 if you can find a place. Just buy a house here if you move here. I mean, it's pretty cheap. The livability score in Mountain Home, Arkansas is 70, and the average monthly expenditure is $1,488. This is not a bad place to live, especially if you're the outdoor type. Arkansas, for all its problems, is not lacking when it comes to natural beauty, great places to fish, be on the water, whatever you want to do. All right, that's today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Don't forget to maybe watch another video if you got time. That would be great. Helps out the channel. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.